Hi, folks. Welcome to the Social Yet Distanced podcast. My name is Jack. I'll be your host today. We're going to be talking with Edward L. Canavan, who is an American poet. His work's been published in Harbinger Asylum, Poetry Quarterly, the Oddville Press, among many, many others. His second poetry collection was entitled Protest in Isolation, was released by Cyberwit. Born and raised in the Bronx, New York, he currently resides in North Hollywood, California, where he practices Buddhism and listens to MC5. Sounds like a good life, Ed. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How's it going, Jack? Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure, buddy. I'm glad that you're here. Um, we talked a little bit before the show, and first of all, I want to say I really enjoyed your work last night on the Collapse Press open mic as a feature there, and I would encourage everybody to visit Collapse Press and take part in their open mic events. And Beast Crawl's coming up too. You want to know about that. So we'll include more information as the weeks go by. We're getting really close. That being said, let's talk, Ed. The thing that I like to do most of all is really just get to know the people that I have sitting across the table from me in the virtual table. And you are one of those people I've been watching, and I certainly value the amount of time that you spend looking at my stuff, and let me know how you feel about that. So that's very important to me, and I appreciate that. It's always intriguing to me how people get from point A, where they didn't write, to where they are today in their writing career or persona or whatever you want to call it. I had my path that I traveled, and I'm sure that you have yours, and I think that the audience would probably love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was just from as early as I can remember, I was always into music, and mostly grew up on cut my teeth on punk and metal, and I was just always very attracted to the lyrics. I always wanted to know, this was back, before you can go to Lyric Genius or anything and find out the lyrics. So there were a lot of times I would just sit and listen
Easy
to a
lyrics,
song over
baby.
and over
Easy
just to,
lyrics.
yeah, just to figure out what they were saying. And it was just such a kick when there actually be a record sleeve with the lyrics on it. And I was just really drawn to that. And flash forward, and it's funny, one of my biggest discoveries was there was a Red Hot Chili Peppers song that I loved. The Chili Peppers, I loved Fishbone, and there was a Chili Peppers song that mentioned Bukowski. I was like, oh, who's this Bukowski guy? And that was it right there. And it's so perfect that I found Bukowski through song lyrics, because growing up and in school, and Shakespeare and all this flowery, lovely poetry, and then I bought a Bukowski book. The first one I bought was Burning in Water, Drowning in Flame. And to this day, the first poem in that book, The Tragedy of the Leaves, was still one of the most amazing things I ever read, because that wasn't what I learned poetry was, and I read that and I said, wow, that's completely just blew my mind that that could be poetry, because that just hit me so hard. It wasn't like, roses are red and we're in love and all, and it was just fucking life, man. And it was harsh, and you made of it whatever you could, as bad as it was, as good as it was, you had to take both and just balance it. And I just took a little bit of that, a little bit of song lyrics, and just, kind of started scratching down some stuff on my own. And Bukowski led me, through, just I got into Dennis Johnson and
Yeah.
Bob Kaufman, and Burroughs, and just not mainstream people. I wasn't reading like
B.A. Lovey.
Stephen King and people like that. Everyone was into that when I was
Right.
growing up, and it was like, when they heard I was reading poetry, they would think about, roses are red, violets. I said, man,
Right.
you're missing out. that there's so much more to it.
It,
And
it's funny. I kind of got
I had
brought.
a
I got brought a completely different path. I remember being very young, and my dad was a pretty studious guy, and he had a bookshelf, and I would always crawl up there and go through the books because I love to read. And I remember these Bukowski books up there, and they were like all the novels. And I would pick them up and read a couple pages or whatever, but it felt dirty to me or something, like I was looking at Esquires or something. I don't know what it was about that, but it made a mark on me, so that once I actually took an interest in it, and that's another whole story how I started writing, but once I started taking an interest in it, that's where I went. And of course, like you said, Bukowski, you know, there's the ongoing debate about him, but the reality is his writing stands for what it is. And if nothing else, he's going to lead you to somebody else like Dennis Johnson, for example, or D.A. Levy, or who knows who, anybody,
Mhm.
that might be in this book, for example. Um, you know, those are the people who make a difference now. And you get led to those people through the people like the Bukowski. And it's become a marketing thing, I think, to me, and I'm guilty of it. On our ongoing support page, which is like Patreon. It's not, but it's like Patreon. And one of the things I said on the level is that everything's free, but if you want to donate, it's $5 a week, $5 a month, which is way less than it would ever cost you to take Bukowski out for a drink.
That's great.
So I hear the reading part of it. How do you start writing?
I just it really took hold. It was my freshman year in high school. I went to Fordham University. My mom worked there. It was a very expensive kind of prep school, and my mom worked there in the religious studies department. And because she worked there, she got half price on college and free to I mean half price in the prep school,
Right.
and a huge discount on college. So me and my brother ended up going there for high school. Well, my brother went there for high school for 4 years. I got booted out after the first year. Um, but I had an English teacher there. Excuse me. He was a Jesuit. His name was Mr. Sheehan, and he looked like he belonged in a Grateful Dead. I mean, he just had a huge beard, wore black socks and sandals, and every day he would have us write a paragraph to bring to class. Anything we want, just write a paragraph. So I just write about music or what record I was listening to, or something like that. And then a couple of weeks in, we started studying poetry. And he said, in lieu of a paragraph for every day, if you want, write a poem instead of a paragraph, hand that in. So that was really my first, well, I have a reason to try, so I might as well start doing this. So I started, handing in poems. And then, he started giving us exercises about, writing poems. And he'd pick a few of us to read them out loud. And he kept kind of picking on me because he liked what I was writing. And the friends I had, they all knew I was into punk and metal and music. So they just assumed I was, stealing lyrics from some obscure band and passing it off as poetry. And I was like, no, it's like, I'm writing this. I'm like, no, you're not writing that. That's not you. And I was like, all right, whatever. But Mr. Sheehan, he just really gave me that little kick I needed. He really, took me aside. He said, this is good stuff, just keep writing, don't listen to these other boneheads. He's like, I know this is coming from your heart, and you just gotta, keep doing it. So, when that semester was over and we moved on, I just kept, writing, kept exploring, kept, look around in the poetry sections. I bought pretty much every Bukowski book I could get my hands on. And then, I another huge influences to me were Patti Smith, Leonard Cohen, just because of that whole music and poetry thing. And that's just, I mean, Patti Smith is just a god to me.
No doubt.
And you know, I just took it from there, and I just started, writing, had my little
Ed,
notebooks.
you probably know it, but I always tell people that like Patti Smith that if they haven't heard Banga, which was
Oh
a
yeah, everything she's ever done is just
excellent album. I
my
mean, I
mind.
love that.
The last concert I actually saw before the lockdown was 2 weeks before the lockdown started. I'd never seen Patti Smith live.
I think I read yesterday she's on tour again.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd definitely go see
I
her
guess
again. But I went
I
to
think
see her at the.
She has a Patreon newsletter that's out there.
Yeah, yeah, she's on Substack as well. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Substack, that's what it is.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went to see her at the Disney concert hall, and it was a religious
I
experience.
saw her with
It's so
Michael
great.
Stipe at the Playhouse, the Variety Playhouse Theater in Atlanta. And Michael Stipe was still so like nervous that he didn't ever face the stage. I mean, the audience.
Right.
The whole time, you know. And when REM first played, he did that a lot.
Mhm.
Back when he still had his long hair, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, he was always a huge proponent of her stuff. He
oh yeah,
fucking loved her
oh
too.
yeah.
And but yes, I like I said, I just started, writing, and it wasn't nobody really knew, I just kept my stuff to myself, and wrote a lot, and got bounced around, went to another high school that was not as advanced as the preparatory school. So it was I just kind of coasted along there, and, barely made it through there. And, college,
It's
after
interesting.
12 years of Catholic school, I really wanted nothing to do with organized religion or organized schooling for that matter.
I bet, yeah.
So,
Yeah, but it's, part of the reason why social yet distance even exists is because my friend, Dr. Fran Locke, who is a doctor, a PhD of poetry in England, she and I have had an ongoing conversation for about 10 years about the differences in the education systems and what they cover in the content that they teach. And of course, the British are much more tuned into the literature, a lot more to the older literature. They're more in tune to studying why these poems exist and the history behind them and all that kind of stuff. And then, I think about what I was taught in public school in Georgia. And then I hear you talking about your experience, and they're all very different, but we all three tell stories that are centered around similar concepts and ideas. We just tell them different. And it's a very interesting thing to me, to see how that's why that's part of the question I always ask is like, how did you get here? And part of what I want to know is, what was your education like? Because I learned everything on my own. I started writing when I was very young, started getting in trouble, quit writing, in and out of jail, that kind of stuff. And the only real writing I did at that point was I made a living writing letters to judges and parole officers and girlfriends at home who were pissed off and that kind of thing, because I had a way of speaking that these guys in jail just couldn't do. And they would do their fancy little hand drawn, hand colored gift cards, or cards that they would send to whoever at home, and I would write the stuff into the cards for them. And now I got pretty good at writing letters to the parole board on my own behalf as well.
Like a Cyrano de Bergerac of the jail system.
The thing about it is in the purge that came much later of all that, and all that I was going through, and all I learned, and all I went through, and the bad decisions that I made, and the reasons behind them, and all that kind of healing that I got from my addiction health and getting that monkey off my back long enough to get some sanity. Then I started purging, and I'm not kidding you, Ed. I have 350 pages of basically free flowing like text where I would just ramble about whatever. And I go through there every once in a while and I'll pull out parts and bits and pieces and I'll tell that story as a poem. And that's kind of how I've done it, is I've taken all of those bits and pieces of my life and I've put them together in something that's presentable, maybe add some art, maybe add some video, something along those lines. But the problem is I'm still talking about myself again all the time. You know, my dealings with metaphor and masking who we're really talking about and those kind of magic skills that poets do, I'm not very good at, because I was trained to be brutally honest, and I don't mince my words, and
Right.
am incapable of lying anymore like I used to. I mean, I could fit any situation at any time. I convinced a Colombian drug dealer that I was my twin brother and that I would go and find me for him. So I've come a long way, baby. My question to you is, you know, when are you going to read some damn poems, dude?
Oh, all right. I'm new to this.
I will out-talk you, believe me.
I you said about purging. I mean, that's pretty much what my first book is, Recollection. It's a lot of amends in here, a lot of I mean, I could pick out, 12 different poems in here to go through the 12 different steps,
Well, as many people as there are in our circles who have experienced that or dealt with that, I imagine that most people that would pick up and read that book are going to see it anyway. I mean, do you find that to be
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot because I think it's a lot more out in the open than it used to be, but also, I was 40 when I got sober, and this book is pretty much the most honest I've been up until that time.
right?
I mean, that was everything up until then was just I was just running on fumes and just hiding shit and just I mean, everything just, broke, after I got sober because it had to, I couldn't carry that weight anymore. And just it was just a huge sigh of relief. And even going back to Bukowski, I was nervous, not nervous, but just I had a weird feeling about going back and reading his stuff now that I was sober. And I just like you said, I mean, it is for what it is, but it just I saw it in a whole different light. There was, a lot of hope in the honesty, that I hadn't seen before. That I just saw it was, funny and dark about drinking and life, and I just saw it with a whole different perspective. That just I basically just reread everything again, when I got sober, and I was just so grateful to know that that was still going to be a part of my life and I could still learn from that in ways I hadn't
Well,
already.
I also think that um, when you think about people from that time, like the Bukowskis and William S. Burroughs and our Gonzo buddy, they were different to begin with, and I think that is the one common thread that runs through all of us, is we all have a bit of madness, whether it's from addiction or just whatever, the way life's treated you, or like Burroughs growing up in an extremely wealthy family. Who knows what the issues are that have made the people into who they are. And when you're looking at things through a new set of glasses, which may ring a bell, if you're ringing, I mean, if you're looking through that lens, then the reality is we fit in as much as they do. We're all just telling the same story in a different way. That's all.
Mhm.
It's not unique because we're artists. It's unique because we're freaking humans. And
Mhm.
most people can't sit down and write it like you and I or Bukowski or Burroughs or anybody else could. So we can speculate all day and we can make judgments, or we can look at the words and pull what the good is out of it and use that in the future. And when I read Bukowski now, I, it is different, but I don't see him as some hopeless, sad drunk.
Right, exactly.
I don't see him that way at all. And,
Mhm.
you know, he may have had his weaknesses as a man, but geez, you know, if people knew my story, you know, I was way weaker than any Bukowski, you know. At least he worked at the post office and had a good living, you know. I
Yeah, yeah, he had a
ability
steady
to
job.
do
Yeah, that's a good job to have.
so let's hear some poetry, brother.
All right, man. This is one of the first ones in Rec collection. It's called "The Sad Fury of Longing." Buried beneath the bones of fate's burned bridges, clawing and clawing, tormented by vacancy and blame, grasping for things gone, searching for a life that never was, as time runs like a thief, taking with it the memories that negate the only truth I've ever known.
Wow, that's a heavy line, man. That line hit me pretty hard. Um, read it again
Yeah,
for me. Read it again.
sure, sure.
It's the last one.
Searching for a life that never was, as time runs like a thief, taking with it the memories that negate the only truth I've ever known.
That's so true, man. Um, you don't write like Bukowski. Um, you know, and I don't know if that's good news to you or bad, but there's a softness in the story that you're telling with that poem, is the way I
Mm.
felt it, you know.
Yeah, it's hard for me because I have tons of stuff that I wrote before I got sober. I read some of it last night on the claps. I can pick and choose stuff from then that I'm comfortable with, but
Right.
it's just bad Bukowski. Most of the stuff I was writing back then, it was in my voice, but it was all about drinking and there was no hope and it was just angry and
Well, I've developed this
that's
habit
not me
too.
anymore.
I developed this habit where I want to punch you with the last line.
Yeah, exactly. I want to fucking punch my point home.
You don't have to remember the poem, just feel the last line, okay?
Yeah, yeah. But there's something to be said for just, you know, as all the lessons I've finally have sunk in, I had to learn in my own time. You can beat me to death with whatever truth you thought I should know. I'm not going to know it until I find it myself.
Exactly. Exactly.
Here's another
Let's
one.
do two or three. I mean, I've taken a lot of your time today, so
Okay,
let's knock out some poems and we'll wrap things up here in a minute.
right on. This is called Tumbleweeds Down Dream Street. Words come and go, worlds collide and coincide, each an anchor to keep me from falling away forever into the taut pull of this lonely life, into the dementia of sanity and sameness. The night hangs like a noose, and sleep becomes nothing more than a waiting grave, if only to die for a few hours and remember why there continues to be so much that needs to be forgotten.
Absolutely. Lovely, man. Lovely.
Falling into place. Burning lights of brokenness adorn the graveyard trees of false testaments and forsaken promise, careening down the mountain, through the fog and blur, the rapid decline from the maddening peak, waiting to come home from the dark storm of deceit, through the flux and the flow, the wisdom and the weakness, the bad days and the good years, knowing that all the time it takes is a gift.
And I noticed a theme in those three of like movement, like the tumbleweeds, for example. And it seems like there's an underlying theme of movement in those three pieces. And I don't know if that's a common thing with you or if you even were aware of that. But what it kind of did for me when I was listening was it turns it from listening to more like a movie in my head. And I'm crazy. So, you know, whatever that means. But, you know, I just, not everybody can do that in the way that they write. And I believe me, I listen to people read all the time. And once in a while, people can kind of reach into my heart and grab it. And I've just noticed on several occasions that you've done that. And the movement thing, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, feels like almost a message, like don't get static, you know, don't get stale there. You got to keep moving regardless.
Yeah.
The whole be one with the water thing, and you know,
Yeah, I mean that I think that's a whole theme, you know, of that runs through, you know, everything I do. As much as of a misanthrope and a hermit that I am sometimes, my movement is very like thought provoked. I need to keep progressing. I need to, you know, keep the stimuli coming. I need to listen to music. I need to read books. I need to keep the ideas flowing, because if I'm just reading the same book over and over, I'm not, you know, I'm not learning anything.
right?
You know,
Yeah.
I need to keep moving. And I think thanks for mentioning that, because yeah, I'm just kind of realizing that myself. But yeah, it does.
Well, and
I mean,
I don't want you to think that I'm imposing that on you and
oh
your.
no, no, not at all. But I mean, it is. I do believe that, you know, I mean, there was the big move from, you know, New York to here, and you know, I've been here now as long as I've been in New York. So I've been half in New York and half here, and but you know, it's more of like, you know, not the physical movement, but the mind movement, the evolution of thought, and you know, like you said, you know, if you're static, you're just stuck.
Well,
You
it's
know,
that willingness to be open to grow. That's
yeah,
ultimately,
and still remain teachable and open to new things, and not, you know,
and not afraid to share what you may have learned
right,
at
yeah,
the same time. That's the trick.
mhm,
Is I got a balance between the me stuff and what can I do for you stuff.
right, yeah, and that's part of like what, you know, how the, you know, the whole pandemic was a blessing and a curse. I was able, you know, just by being static and not being able to leave my house, it opened my eyes up to other things that I wouldn't have seen otherwise, you
Right,
know.
right.
And
Understand.
I'm going to read a couple from Protest and Isolation.
Yeah, hold it up so everybody can see it a little bit better. Look at that cover. Protest and isolation. This
I love
means
the upside
war.
down American flag. Something ain't right.
There's a line in one of my poems about back when I thought that the American and an upside down American flag meant distressed, didn't meant pissed off, not distressed.
This is called Same as Never. Caught in the clang of a cracked bell, painful echoes of nothing familiar. The hours stretch like some lost road toward a dim and fogged horizon. No use to dwell or fret over wheels already set in motion, destinations as yet undetermined. All the more reason to seize these strange days and to recalibrate the coordinates toward our brightest inner horizons, to at least assure that if we trip or stumble, we can still fall in the right direction.
Yes, we can.
Oh, here. Trying to find one. The weight of things undone. The circle widens to break the blue line and smash its shield. Long this fight for growth and progress, for the killing and oppression of generation after generation of color, to become as common a fodder for revolution as the white-walled streets of privilege and pensions. Nothing matters more than these lives lived in fear, now taking the power back and turning, burning page after burning page. Until the smoke is cleared, the pages are blank, and the book can be completely rewritten.
Nice thought, huh?
This, I'm gonna read this one. This is the last one in Protest and Isolation. Has a lot to do with media overkill and bullshit and fake news and all that crap. It's called Not Everything That Is Real Is True. Dictated by societal means, we are taught by our own existence. Knowing not the impact of our non-classification in deeper schemes of acknowledgement and bias. Needing to broaden our spectrum, the more progressive we become. Inclusivity is often overlooked by those of us falsely believing we are above such tensions and neglect. There are voices to guide us and words to inspire us outside of our wheelhouses, far beyond the scope of what our own experience has told us. We can only go so far on what we already know. Our specific status quo needs to be unsettled, our complicity challenged, and our comfort uprooted every so often, in order to constantly reevaluate the truth of who we have been, who we currently are, and who we wish to be.
Amen. I really, really love your work, brother. I can't wait to read up a bunch more.
Thank you so much.
Do that, or I might do the easy way and just go watch your YouTube stuff.
Oh yeah, shit, I've been doing that like 2 years now. Yeah.
Well, so listen, let's do that. I would like for you to cover like where we can buy your books, what you got coming, what you got out there, you know, where how folks can get a hold of you and continue to enjoy your work.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I have these 2 books. They're available on Amazon, also on the cyberwitpress.com website. My Instagram is at edward.l.canavan.com, and there's a link tree that has my books, a couple of anthologies I'm in, also has a link to my Substack and WordPress. Also on my Facebook page, I have a poets page under Edward L. Canavan. I post my Substack and WordPress. It's called Dispatch, the Sunday Dispatch. I post about 5 or 6 new poems every Sunday. Every Sunday, Christmas, New Year's, whatever day Sunday falls on, 5 or 6 new poems. And I always like to end it with a quote.
Now, which Sabbath is that?
Yes. Black.
Black. There you go.
And yeah, and also on my Instagram page, I started during the lockdown just to keep my mind busy, something called Poems for Days. Every day I post a new poem on Instagram. They're very, very short, maybe 4 or 5 lines, but just to kind of get the ball rolling and, you know, keep people interested. And
Well, to help keep people interested, if you'll put together a little notepad doc or something and send it to me
Absolutely, yeah.
as soon as you can. That way,
Mhm.
when I do the description for the YouTube, I can include all that stuff there as well.
Yeah, I also like you said, I my Substack and WordPress poems that I email out every week and post on social media. I also read those on my YouTube channel, and I post that every Saturday about midnight. So you can see me, you can read me, you can feel me. I'm all
That's
about it.
more. That's extra though. Well, Ed, it's been a great afternoon. I appreciate you spending some time with me. I'm sure the audience is going to love hearing your work and investigating a little bit further. If you'll hang tight, I'm going to stop the recording and we'll wrap it up. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming and spending the afternoon with us here at the Social Yet Distance podcast. Hope you enjoyed the afternoon with our buddy Ed, and look for the links in the description below. We will talk to you soon and hope to see you there. Like, subscribe, and share. I need viewers, please. I need subscribers, please, so I can get paid for doing all this work. Thank you. Bye now.